Okay, we're recording.
Oh, there's a little recording thing.
Can you see it? Can you see that
Yeah.
we're recording now?
Yeah. It's like this little red thing.
Yeah.
It says recording.
It's Ben Siekierski.
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 Yeah.
Okay. Are you Polish?
Yeah, on my dad's side.
Cool.
My mom's side's a bit more complicated, but
That's good.
my dad's side's all Polish.
Nice. Yeah, thanks a lot for agreeing to do this. So you're in Denver, Colorado?
Yep.
By the stockyards?
By the stockyards. The cow smell isn't that bad. What's really bad sometimes is the Purina dog food factories down the street.
Yes, when I lived in Denver, I was just going to ask you that. The Purina plant smells so bad.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It smells like you had your head always in a bag of dog food.
Yeah.
So I've kind of gotten the habit of lighting incense when I'm in here, which I've never, before having the studio, I've never actually even bought incense.
I bought incense for the first time because the woman that lives below me puts her kitty litter in the entranceway. And so I started putting incense. Anders is working on getting to the bottom of it.
I think this quarantine might bring out the worst in me as a neighbor, and there's going to be a discussion about the kitty litter.
Oh, gosh. So this, like, you were really generous about the smell because it smells like you have your head in a bag of rotting dog food.
Rotting dog food?
Yeah, like the dog food in the bag died itself. Going through the rot, whatever the body and rot is called.
So other than the cool dog food smell, what's your studio like? Do you want to just show us around what the space is really briefly?
Yeah, I'll move this really slowly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get to the door and then I'll switch the camera around.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Here we go. Cool. So I guess one of the perks of being outside of New York and Los Angeles is that you get a lot of opportunities for big studio spaces. So this is kind of my half. It kind of ends at this window. And then I share it with a professor I had at REMCAD, Clark Rickert, who does these kind of massive math-based paintings. Yeah.
Wow.
And I kind of just have stuff everywhere.
Man,
this is actually the cleanest it's been in a while.
Did we catch you on a good day, or did you clean it for us?
I actually had a studio visit with a collector earlier this week.
Okay.
So I had to clean it up. Sorry, I took a sip of water wrong.
Okay. It's not coronavirus. Don't freak out, everyone. Everyone stay calm. Ben's fine.
It's contagious over the phone, guys. Yeah, so I just have stuff everywhere. I don't necessarily work in clay primarily, but I guess most of my work usually has ceramics in it. So I'm kind of rethinking that a little bit. This is usually where...
Go back to the books. We want to see what's on your bookshelf.
Oh, yeah. It's mostly just art books. Let's see. Full Tom Sachs book.
Nice. So Anders, I love the art and theory books.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta have
them. Gotta have them. So I went to the art school I went to, paid for all our books, but that was the only textbook we needed.
Where did you go to school?
I went to the Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design. That was a little fast.
Oh, nice bricks too.
Yeah.
What's happening with the bricks?
That's something I've been playing around with. I have a couple of ideas I've been working around with. Here's kind of a test fist. I had this idea for artwork that involves hands trying to like break through barriers, but like not having the right tools to do so. So for like this one, I kind of had the idea of making like a ramming fist that would like try punch through the cardboard bricks, and then there'd be actually like cinder blocks behind it. Yeah, so I've just kind of been playing around with that, or like I had an idea for some hands.
Called it a test fist. It's like, I mean, it looks like a regular fist. I didn't realize it was gonna.
Like this one has like a box cutter that was going to be breaking through like a privacy screen on like a chain link fence.
Wow.
You holding the hands is a really nice visual.
It's like, hey, it's kind of like I kind of modeled the sweatshirt off on the sweatshirt.
I think you literally just defined meta.
Yeah.
Right.
Like we have one that was going to be like grasping the chain link. Let me see. I could like. Oh wait, this hand. And then I kind of got bored. And I wanted some bookends.
Nice.
So I was making some bookends because I saw your piece, the biggest tigerfish.
It's a tiger muskie.
It's a tiger muskie. Okay.
So Anders and I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota, and outside of there's this little town called Nevis, and that's like that whole area has so many of like the world's largest, like there's the world's largest dairy cow sculpture. So there's just tiger muskie in Nevis, Minnesota.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
What I love about ceramics is like you can pop in, like you can just make, you're like, oh, I need some bookends, and then you can be like, oh, I need a hook for my bathroom. Oh, I need a drill.
Yeah.
Out of clay.
So Ben, what did you study in school? You didn't study. You studied art in general, or?
Yeah, I guess my degree was kind of just generally fine art, but it was kind of an emphasis on sculpture, and for the most part, I did I did advanced ceramics and advanced sculpture classes. So it's kind of like my emphasis. Yeah.
So what's going to happen with all these pieces and parts of things?
Oh, so these, I just kind of, I think I kind of just created this idea where I'm like, oh, I should just like replicate everything in my studio while I wait to hear back from like grad school applications. I was like, oh, if I leave, I'll just like sell off everything in my studio, but like the copies of them. And then it kind of morphed into this idea of once the coronavirus hit, I was like, oh, but I'm just gonna be isolated in here. I don't know. I'm still thinking through it. I kind of think through things a little bit more while I'm making them. Sometimes, I don't know.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I like, yeah.
I often think like, yeah, the act of making things is such a good way just to work through ideas. Like, and when you are, like when you're sitting there, like remaking that incense, like that's a time to really think about why you're remaking that incense, because you don't have a whole lot else to do.
Yeah, like I'm kind of just like stuck in here.
Have you started making underglaze containers yet?
What?
Have you started remaking the underglaze containers yet?
No, I figured those were kind of going to be like the end.
Yeah.
Like once I run out of every other object.
Have you seen the Fishley and Weiss piece where they do?
No.
Yeah, take a look at their work. I mean, they're probably my favorite artists, and I think you will fall in love with them as much as I love them. I promise you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to check them out.
Yeah, please.
At the Guggenheim, they had all those like their clay pieces, their unfired clay pieces, and then I just kept walking and walking and walking, and then I got up to the top where they had remade all this stuff, and I couldn't figure out what I was looking at.
But so what? So are you going to graduate school?
No, I ended up only applying for UCLA this time around, and they rejected me. Which is fine. It's always next year.
They made a big mistake. So where are you? Where are you from originally? Are you from Denver?
Yeah, actually, I'm from Parker, and I went. Let's see, Parker. It's kind of like a suburb. If you take 25, it feels like it's disconnected from Denver, and it looks like there's like just empty land between Denver and Parker. But if you take Parker Road, it kind of flows into Aurora, which goes into Parker. So it feels more like a suburb when you're out there of the city. And then I went to grade school, like elementary through high school in Elizabeth. So kind of like out in the country. Sometimes at the high school, we couldn't use the parking lot because it was surrounded by a pasture and the cows would get out.
That's so crazy. That's I remember because when I lived in Denver, it was really like city country, and there was a huge stark like line that separated the two. It was really weird. Denver's really cool, and it's also very flat, and then boom, mountains, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty weird place. Yeah, it's like a pretty interesting place. I feel like it's definitely a place you go to kind of hide away from everyone. I've noticed, like people who come here, I don't know. I feel like it's an ending point instead of like a beginning. Sometimes.
Oh, that's so. What does that mean? Like, what does that mean for you? Like, what does that mean for you? Like, processing that.
I don't know. I mean, I really want to like get out of it some days. I mean, it's pretty lovely. It's like really walkable. Most people here are really nice, except when we legalized pot, it kind of took away a lot of studio spaces, and also brought a lot of people who like to honk their horns when they're driving, which it's really like in college when I started like traveling a lot more to like New York and San Francisco and LA, it was like that was like the most jarring part about traveling was like listening to people honk their horns and then coming back to Denver and it being like silent. But over like the last few years, it's kind of like you hear it more and more, and it's I don't know how to describe it. But I don't know. It just feels kind of like stagnant sometimes. It's like we're kind of like just out here isolated, surrounded by the mountains.
So like I didn't live in Denver, but I lived in Fort Collins for like 6 months before I moved to New York. And it felt like Denver had like a really good, really vibrant, like local art scene. And it seemed like there were a couple of galleries that were like good at bringing people like outsiders in, but it seemed like the local like crew was really tight knit. Yeah. Like I went to, what's that big building that's by Red Line? It's like a big,
the temple?
The what?
The temple?
Yeah, I went to a thing there, and it was like the entire building was a party.
Yeah. No, like it's pretty. Don't get me wrong. I think the coronavirus has got me all doom and gloom lately. But Denver, it is pretty incredible how like tight knit everything is. Like you kind of get the sense that you, like, can like know everyone pretty fast. But even just like in like normal outside the art world life, I have this like theory that everyone is just like 1 degree like away from knowing everyone in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how yeah, Cleveland is like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like you kind of yeah, like I was talking to a coworker who knew someone that I knew, and they're like, "How do you know them?" I'm like, "Oh, well, he's using this thing and that thing," and it's just like you're always like, yeah, like everyone knows each other, like through like one separation or another. That might be changing, but that's my experience.
So wait, what do you do for work?
Currently I work in coffee, just kind of like nice. Like I work at a coffee shop, Pablo's.
Awesome.
And, Yeah, it's like really, really chill. The company is really great, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's kind of nice to be just not in the studio all the time, like doing something else, and like having that separation.
Do you get to make a lot of work? Like, do you get a lot of studio time?
Yeah, I only work like 30 hours a week,
Oh, that's awesome.
but like 3 days off. And then I'm usually in the studio every night. And then on those days off, yeah, I'm just like here if I'm not like hanging out with people. Everything's like really close together. Like only like a 10-minute drive from anything.
Yeah, it seems like it's really like you really are able to make a bunch of work because you were doing some residency in Japan not that long ago, right?
Yeah, I did a residency in Matsudo, Japan last year. Let me see. I ended up I taught myself how to carve wood. This is the first thing I did.
Awesome. That's your first piece?
Yeah. So I ended up like, what did I do? Yeah, so I made this project where I was, Brooklyn Clay. I keep getting these little pop-ups.
Yeah.
Where I was exploring
Yeah.
Bigfoot in Japan and the U.S. because in 1970 they had this their version of Bigfoot was sighted by some Boy Scouts up in the hill or up in Mount Hiba outside of Hiroshima, and so I kind of played around with that idea as being like they probably didn't see a Bigfoot, but they probably were like primed by the cultural diffusion between the U.S. and Japan at the time.
Right.
Because it was 2 years after the famous Bigfoot sighting or like video. Like, I think it's called the Patterson-Gimlin tape, where it's like the famous like Bigfoot walking through a creek.
I remember that. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That was like a super big deal.
Yeah. So like, I figured I was like, okay, they probably just like saw something else, but I also thought like, well, this is kind of interesting to explore this through like the lens of like a artist in residency, where I'm bringing some of like my culture to Japan, and I'm taking some of their culture back with me. So I brought Bigfoot to Matsudo. I called it the Matsugon. Kind of like their version was called the Hibagon.
Matsuda. That's really funny.
Yeah, so I did a bunch of these. We were supposed to install them in this kind of like transportation like underpass below the JR line. But the city pulled out like last minute. They're like, oh, you can't do this like 20 minutes before we were installing. And so we just ended up doing like a photo series where I was just hiding them around the city.
Oh, that's
like
pretty good too. That's really kind of better. How many did you end up making?
I ended up making 12 there. Let's see. I think I keep taking like little commissions for them. So I have, let's see, I'm making, let's say 8 right now. And then I've probably made like almost 30 of them at this point.
That's pretty good. Your work is like, overall, your work is really, really kind of based in humor. Is that like how do you, like, where do you start with an idea? I'm kind of interested because my work is kind of funny as well. I mean, your work is like dangerous. Your work is like funny and dangerous, I feel. But like, how do you like process, like, how do you know when it's like too funny or not fun? Like, what's the process of making one of your pieces like? And everyone that's watching, you guys should totally follow him on Instagram because his work is like hilariously funny and scary. It's a little scary and daunting.
Yeah, but the swimmers are just like all of those pool pieces are so beautiful. Like they are funny as well, but they're just like gorgeous things.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
Anna and I were talking before about how like I just want one in my apartment so badly.
Yeah, you're so nice.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Um, I usually have like some little notebook with me, and I'll like go to a coffee shop or something. And I'll just like hang out and like draw dumb pictures and think of like really dumb jokes until I think like the best dumb joke like rises to the top.
Right.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of I mean, if you look at my notebooks, they do look, if you read them, they do sound like really serious, I think. But I'm not like a serious person. I wouldn't describe myself as that. But yeah, I just kind of like, usually these things start off as one-liners or something I find like interesting. So like the pool pieces I started off, I was like a competitive swimmer up until high school. And I was in the studio. I was like, oh, this is kind of like, and I started swimming again while I was also at REMCAD, like just like for exercise. Yeah. I was like, it feels a lot like being in my studio. And so I kind of was like playing around with that, like kind of the self-isolation in there. And then like,
there is something so funny about when you're like in your studio and you really don't want to be there and you're like, no, like, because it kind of feels like working out where you're like, no, I got to put the time in now for like the future.
Yeah.
That's true.
Usually I just take a nap when I feel like I'm not working.
Yeah.
Like I'm like back here. I just like put on some like relaxing music and take a nap until I feel like working again or I have to go do something.
That's really funny. That's very Le Corbusier, right? I think Le Corbusier designed a lounge chair in his office so that as soon as his arm fell, he would wake up, which happened to be 15 minutes. Which I mean, you have like you have enough space that you have a sofa in your studio, so I guess you're fine.
Yeah.
You're ready for any given moment for a nap. You're like, I'm there.
Yeah. It's actually more of like I think it's like technically a futon, but it's leaned up to my bookcase in a way that I can't like move the back.
That's smart. You should keep it like that. Yeah. You don't want to get
I don't need like an actual bed in here.
No, that would be too safe.
Do you have any of the swimmer pieces around in your studio right now?
I don't. I have like a broken one that I have like a broken one that broke on its way to New York last year. That I need to.
Yeah, because I think that's also just a funny way that people often, like, they don't think of using like pre-made tile, which I'm guessing you're just like getting at the hardware store.
Yeah, I do have this guy.
Oh yeah, look at it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he was supposed to be in a thing.
Do you know Beth Lowe's work?
No.
You should look. She was making some like funny swimming pieces. She was my professor when I was a kid, and she was making these like really beautiful swimming pieces, like a lot of these like almost like cartoon characters, like, and they were really really great. She's made tons of. Her body of work was kind of massive, but that stuff especially was really nice.
Tell us who are your influences? Like, what do you like to watch, or what do you look at?
Well, I
what does your Google look like?
My Google? My Google's like really weird. Actually, I mean, it's not that weird right now. I was just looking up how a good green curry recipe. But I don't know. I love artists, like kind of, I guess, bigger name artists like John Baldessari and Tom Sachs and little Louise Bourgeois and Chris Burden. I really love Chris Burden's work. And then other people like Tom House and Calvin Marcus.
I don't know them.
Well, I used to be Tom Sachs ceramics technician, so I used to inlay all the NASA logos.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I made a replica.
I was eyeing it.
We have to see this.
I made this when I was in undergrad. was like, oh, I need this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it looks real bad.
That's what his early ones looked like when he was like just figuring out what process he wanted. A lot of his old ones looked like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
It is really
It
good.
also, it got way too small. I'm not a really good ceramicist. I forget a lot that like things shrink.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't consistently use slip to bind things. I'm trying to be better, but like my shark bookcase kind of came apart. Bookend.
Yeah, I had to learn, like early on, I had to learn that lesson after I kept breaking, everything kept breaking of mine. And then I was like, God, I'm so bad at this. But then really I just never scored anything. I'm so lazy
Yeah.
at this.
Yeah, but there's also a thing where like when you make 5 things that don't break, where you're like, I'm so good at this, I don't need to do the rules anymore.
Yeah. I got to that point when I was working on the swimmer pieces, where I put an entire load of sharks in. The first sharks I made for those like pool shark pieces all exploded in the kiln.
Whoa.
Like about 20 sharks.
Oh, that hurt.
Although the hammerhead did survive, which was my favorite. I think I gave that one to my mom. But yeah, so like 20 of them exploded at once, and I was like, oh, I need to play by the rules a little bit more. I can't just like load just hand done sharks into the kiln.
Like you just finished sculpting the heads and then you put it directly from your hand into the kiln and turn it on and walk away.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oh wait, no,
Yeah,
that did happen last week. So I had I loaded a bisque fire. My kiln is at the coffee shop I work at.
Wait,
Wait,
what?
at the coffee
Wait. Yeah, exactly. What? Go back. Stop.
Wait, I need to find my drawer. So when I got back from Japan, I bought an old kiln off Craigslist, and then spent months trying to figure out a place to plug it in because I can't put 220 in here. And in Colorado, you can't ask your landlord for 220. And also, I don't know the landlord. I'm like by sublease. So I was like, okay, maybe I could put it in my parents' house. They also didn't have 220, and they had a full box. So I didn't want to put in a sub box. So eventually at work, I was complaining about it, and my boss and the owner were like, why don't you just bring it here? Because I work mostly at where they roast coffee. So they have 220 everywhere. So I just roast coffee outside of Pablo's. I like truck all my stuff down there.
It's a really great way to get
cool.
you to work more too. That's brilliant on your boss's part. In
Yeah.
fact, I'm gonna tuck that one away for later.
So I did a bisque fire last week, and I had the drill version of this. So this is the impact driver, my Makita impact driver. And so I had made this drill, but I made it the week that I was firing. I was like, oh, I could ramp this up slowly. This is fine. But another thing about the kiln, it's like this old Paragon A66B kiln. And I had to rewire it to a different socket or outlet.
Oh.
And I got rid of, after doing like a lot of research, I was like, oh, I don't need the neutral wire. I just need the 2 hots. So I can only fire it on high heat. So I have to, when I start a fire, or when I start a firing, I have to be there for like 2 hours. I just turn on high and I set a timer, turn it off, and then turn it back on. And so I'm just like doing that for like 2 hours.
You like,
and then I just leave it on high. Yeah, the lid is slowly going more and more down. Actually, it's either this, or just all the way down.
Oh, that's awesome. This is like you really must want it to go through it.
Yeah. But anyway, I went in to check on it, and all of a sudden I like looked in, I was like, yeah, this is looking pretty good. And then I looked up and I kind of looked down at my phone and I heard a pop.
Oh,
and all of a sudden there's like clay all over the floor, and the drill exploded.
no.
But everything else was fine, and it wasn't hot enough to where I got like a glove and I just like fished out the parts. But I didn't fish out enough parts because the battery base on it also exploded.
Oh,
And so I had to go in and fish that out too. But everything else was fine.
yeah.
It was like,
That's one of the best like kiln firing, because it's rare that you even come across people with just a manual kiln right now.
Yeah.
it has a kiln sitter.
Yeah. That's so good.
That's really good. I mean, that's totally happened to me, and it's happened to me recently. So if it helps you feel better about it, I blow up shit in my kiln all the time.
Yeah.
Gus, of course, doesn't because he's perfect. Whatever.
Close stuff up. I remember the first thing I did with my brand new little test kiln was I just melted a bunch of stuff to the floor of the kiln.
Oh, word. Yeah, no, I'm not worried about that. I don't think it can get that hot. It can't. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a test fire again because my first glaze fire failed and it couldn't get to cone 6.
Ooh.
But I'm hoping low fire.
Yeah. Yes.
That's what I'm going for.
Yeah. Totally.
So,
yeah, the guy at the clay store was like, "You want low fire?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, I think you should really do mid fire." I'm like, "No, I'm fine." He's like, "Well, what are you making?" I'm like, "I just make sculptures." He's like, "Oh yeah, you'll be fine. Never mind." But
Yeah.
he's like, he thought I was like some guy coming like a potter or something. But I can't throw on the wheel.
Like, what are you making? And you're like, sharks and drills and fists mostly.
Yeah, like I'm just making all these fists. I think the fists, I'm gonna have to take them to RimCAD when it reopens and use their kiln. Just like sneak in, because I do want the fists to be a little bit more durable. Like I want to be able to punch some things with them.
That makes sense.
Is there gonna
Yeah.
be a machine that punches, like that makes the fists go like back and forth?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. My first idea was that it was going to be kind of like a ram. So it's like going to be like on like a pendulum. And so someone can come by with like, and pull on the rope and then let the rope go. And then it just punches into the
Right.
piece.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then maybe having like spare fists.
yeah, that's smart. The spare fist would be really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I would fire this fit. The not test fist. It went through bisque fine and then I dropped it.
Oh.
And it broke going into my car. So this test fist is a little too small. And also doesn't look as good as the other hands.
This is becoming like what not to do.
Yeah, I was
I just
like,
want to give you advice so bad. Like wrap it in a piece of bubble wrap or something.
oh no, I did. I have like all this upholstery foam. I just felt like the bisque was fine. So I have like all these boxes.
Oh yeah.
So when it's greenware, it's like all wrapped up
Okay.
and like not going anywhere.
Okay. Cool.
It's not gonna break in greenware. But like bisque, I'm just like, that's bisque.
And then you bisque fire everything and then you do your like underglaze, like are you all Amoco underglaze decorating them, or what do you do for surface treatment?
I am all Amocoing underglazing them. Which I feel like is kind of lame, but
It's not.
I think that's all I really know. But
Yeah.
I mean, Gus does all of his work in stroke and coat.
Yeah.
oh, word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if that makes you feel better.
Someday I'll get Mako to sponsor me.
Keep dropping names, Gus.
Mako, stroke and coat. Best.
Yo, if like Amico just wants to send me like the full colors line or whatever,
Yeah. It'd be okay. You'd be
yeah.
fine.
I mean, they could even just send me the little pots. Like I don't need the big pots.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is how it happens.
Well, this is fun. It's fun to like take this time. I mean, it's such a just like weird time for everybody, but it is nice to sit down and do stuff like this, that like you had posted on your Instagram, like, anybody want to do studio visits?
Yeah.
Cami and I were starting to do these videos, and Anders is doing some too, just to try and get stuff out there. So yeah, it is like, it's actually been they've been way more fun than I thought they would be.
It's kind of super fun. Yeah, I mean, it's been really fun, and it's been really nice to meet you and see your work, like see your process a little bit. I love your Instagram, so.
I know. I was kind of nervous about this because I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be like starstruck or something. I'm gonna be like, oh, Gus Hamilton, like what? Like,
oh my God, I'm barfing.
my work.
I can tell you all sorts of stuff about Gus that you'll never have that fear again.
Word.
Save that for next time.
Okay. Yeah, the next studio visit.
Yeah.
Well, also, I'm really enjoying the podcast.
Oh.
It's kind of nice to listen to.
Thank you.
That's really nice. Yeah, we'll have to, the next time Anders and I are out in Denver to see our sister, we'll come by in-person studio visit, and then we'll all FaceTime Cami.
Oh, fun.
Oh, word. Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Cool.
Yeah. Does anybody have any last-minute questions for Ben about his practice?
No, I think it's been really nice. I think, again, for everyone that's like watching, check out his Instagram. It's really just like a fun way to look at, making ceramics.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, my Instagram is just like my name, which is kind of hard to spell a little bit, but I guess it's like right there, right? Can they see that?
When we post this, we'll share it like through the BKLYN CLAY thing, and we'll post the link in there, and then we'll probably, because we can't really record podcasts right now, so we'll probably start posting these through the ceramic podcast.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for
Thank you so
doing
much.
this, Ben. This is fun.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Super fun.
Nice to meet you guys too. Thanks
Thank
a lot
you.
for doing this. Yeah.
Yes, the best.
Good
Yeah.
luck.
Good luck.
Yeah. We'll talk soon.
Yeah. Stay safe, guys. Don't go out too much in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, you too.
Your governor just ordered us to not do that.
Yeah.
Oh, man.